Welcome back to Live from Barney's Couch. I'm Andrew Olson, aka Barney Builder, and today I have a really exciting Barney topic to talk about. Today I want to share a little background on the 1991 Barney boutiques that were placed inside the Neiman Marcus department stores. Really no formal history has been published about these boutiques. There's a couple pictures floating around there out on the internet, but the majority of the products that were sold there, the story of how Barney came to Neiman Marcus and how the boutiques did, hasn't really been told before. And so I'm really excited to be able to have the opportunity to tell this story to all of you because it's a really interesting story. Now, I do feel that the Neiman Marcus deal of 1991 was a real validator for Cheryl in letting her know that what she was doing with Barney over the past 4 years was working. And that she was going from, no one wanting to license Barney and manufacture Barney plushes or any other Barney products to basically one of the largest department store retailers in the country approaching her and wanting to carry Barney products in their stores. Not only just carry Barney products in their stores, but dedicate an entire section of the stores to Barney boutiques. Now, how did Barney go from no one wanting to license products to being in a big department store? Well, this goes back to 1988, and the origins of the Neiman Marcus deal really start with the release of Backyard Show and Three Wishes in late 1988. Both tapes, Backyard Show and Three Wishes, were a smashing success when they were released. And actually, within even 5 months, by the end of the year, in 1988, Backyard Show alone had already sold over 15,000 copies, which amounts to around $335,000 worth of sales. And the tapes were available in over 3,000 stores nationwide by the end of 1988. So as you can see, really momentum for Barney was in its very early stages, but it showed Cheryl and the rest of the creators that, there was a demand for what they were doing. Now, one of these tapes ended up in the hands of an 18-month-old little girl named Dana Fiwas. Now, Dana's reaction to Barney was very typical of toddlers. She was pretty obsessed from a very young age. And actually, at 1.5 years old, she learned how to use a VCR, put Barney tapes in by herself, rewind them, and watch them over and over and over again. After her mother, Leslie, saw Dana's reaction to Barney, she decided to call the number on the back of the VHS tape. And lo and behold, she ended up talking with Cheryl Leach. And Leslie told her how much Dana loved these tapes and, just to compliment her on what she was doing. Then in turn, Cheryl Leach asked Leslie if she wanted to get involved in the Lions group and help make cold calls to sell these Barney tapes to other young mothers. And Leslie accepted, and she became what was known as a mom blitzer, or Cheryl Leach's sales force of mothers. So she made these sales calls and trying to sell Barney tapes to other mothers. She wasn't too successful, she said. But, it was really an entry point for her to get more and more involved in the Lions group and with Barney. Now, as Leslie got more involved with the Lions group, she decided that they needed more Barney merchandise. They had the Dakin dolls. They had the VHS tapes, but that was about it. So Leslie helped license Barney to a company called Make an Impression Incorporated. Now, Make an Impression produced stamps, and they made both roller stamps and traditional rubber stamps for Barney. And in turn, the Lions Group would sell these stamps in the Barney catalog. Throughout the years, Leslie got more and more involved with the Lions Group, and actually at one point, Cheryl gave her the original Barney costume that was used in the 1988 production of Barney and the Backyard Gang to store in her garage and bring around to fairs and other promotional events that would promote the character. She would have one of her friend's sons put on the costume and act in it at these events. And there's actually a funny story that Leslie told me that her husband Bernie actually got in the costume once and tried to surprise Dana just around their house. And after, Dana saw Barney and such, he tried to take the costume off and ended up getting stuck inside of it. Inside of that costume had a big aluminum frame inside of it to keep its shape. and he got tangled in the aluminum. They almost had to call the fire department to get him out. Thought that was a kind of funny story. Now, her daughter Dana would continue to be one of Barney's biggest fans, and actually in 1991 she appeared in Barney in concert in the Alphabet Song. Now, Cheryl asked Leslie to organize the Alphabet Song for the show. As you know, they sang the alphabet in both English, Hebrew, and French. And Leslie went down to Dana's Jewish school and recruited her Hebrew class to come and sing it live on stage. And a friend of hers helped recruit the French singing kids to sing it in French on stage. Now that you have a little background on the Fewises and their involvement with Barney and the Lions Group, it's time to talk a little bit about how they brought about the Neiman Marcus deal of 1991. This was a huge deal for Lions Group to get into Neiman Marcus, and it really validated to Cheryl to let her know that what she was doing was working and resonating with children. And Neiman Marcus was, and still is, a massive high-end department store. As it turned out, Leslie's husband Bernie was the president of the Neiman Marcus catalog division, and Leslie had the genius idea to bring Barney to Neiman Marcus. Bernie loved the idea, Cheryl was on board, and so it kind of just fell into place. You know, Neiman Marcus helped set the Lions Group up with some buyers that would be able to supply them with Barney products, and they started developing the idea. One real draw to the Neiman Marcus boutiques is that they would offer exclusive Barney merchandise that you couldn't get anywhere else. Rock with Barney, that was released in 1991, was to be solely distributed at Neiman Marcus at the time. Now, at the time, Neiman Marcus had, I think, 23 stores, but the Barney boutiques were not in all of them, just a couple. Now, they had some amazing merchandise inside these boutiques, including, you know, 2 different sizes of these exclusive gun dolls that were only sold at Neiman Marcus. You know, they had handmade sleeping bags, they had clothing, hair ties, tumblers, watches, you know, you name it, they probably had it at these boutiques. They even had, you know, custom display shelves and display cutouts created for these boutiques. And Barney actually appeared at a couple of them in person to promote himself. Now, these boutiques were a relatively big success. You know, remember at the time, Barney was still relatively unknown. He was in toy stores and video stores nationwide, but still, you know, he didn't have a TV show, he wasn't on TV, and he wasn't a household name per se. But these boutiques would give him really big exposure nationwide and would really prepare the Lions Group for a nationwide JCPenney's deal that would be struck a year later in 1992. Now, today, any merchandise that came from those boutiques is extremely rare and very collectible. And while I don't have a lot from those boutiques, I do have a couple items and I'd love to show you today. I have 4 gun dolls that were produced for these Neiman Marcus boutiques, and actually this one right here was the factory prototype for the official gun dolls that were later produced. This one also has a special gunned sample tag and is dated and signed by the artisan that built him. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, this is the larger of the 2 gun dolls that was produced. This is the 18-inch version. The other one is the 10-inch version. And there's an even larger one that I'll show you in a second. But this one was slightly less popular than the smaller one, just because kids can carry around the smaller one better. And so he's a little more rare. Now, I also have this giant gun doll that was produced for the boutiques. And actually this one was never sold. He is a factory prototype, just like my tiny guy here, and was produced as a store display, but was never actually used as a store display, funny enough. I have no idea how many of these were made. This could be one of a kind. There could be 2 or 3 out there. I have no idea. Another item I have from the boutique is a watch that's actually still in its package. These are extremely rare, and you know, these don't come up on the collector's market very often, so I'm happy to snag it when I did. I also have the 1991 Christmas catalog that the Barney items were listed in. And funny enough, you can see Dana right here posing as the model for Barney products. Now that I've told you a little bit about the Neiman Marcus deal, I want to showcase some of the collectibles that I've added to my collection in the past month. Now, in this past month, I've added 84 pieces to my collection. I think that's a record for me. Now, in 2020, we lost the Lyric Publishing creative director, Tricia Legault. And this past summer, the family decided to do an estate sale, and a lot of the items that I got this month are from that estate sale. There were 44 8x10 high quality images taken from these Barney boutiques that was included in Tricia's estate. And when I saw them, I knew I had to get them to preserve them. You may not know who Tricia is, but you've undoubtedly probably seen her name. You know, her name is on the back of every single Barney book produced. This is one of the favorite items that I collected over the past month from her estate. It is her Barney team member shirt, and it's something I really hold dearly, especially since, you know, it came from her, and her family wanted you know, pieces from her collection to go to people that would appreciate it. And I'm so glad that I was able to obtain this and preserve it. Now, some other items I was able to obtain from her estate. This is a Barney press kit. It's a really cool folder. It folds out, you know, it has a bunch of Barney products inside of it, a bunch of catalogs and handouts and such. And I just thought this folder was so unique and really cool, and I'm so happy that I was able to get it. Another really unique item here is an invitation to an event in 1993 where they were going to be introducing BJ. So, you know, this says Monday, September 27th, 1993 at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Games Day Sports Cafe in Plano. Barney and Baby Bop invite you to meet their newest friend in our Barney and Friends new season celebration. So this was really cool and a really unique item. Now, like I said, I got dozens of items from her estate, and I really can't show them all because there's so many, but these are really cool. These are the programs, the souvenir programs for 2 of the tours. And these are actually the production proofs, and so these would have been printed out and given to Tricia, and she would have approved them before they were sent to be mass printed. So these are the very first copies of these ever made. Now, I literally have dozens of books that she served as the creative director on, and these are all the production proofs as well, and nicely preserved in plastic. You can really tell that she cared about her work and what she did for a living, and it really showed through you know, the books that came out that she cared. Now, some other items I've been able to collect over the past month. You know, I got these 2 Dakin Barneys from 1992. They have their tags, brand new, still never played with. I found these at an estate auction, actually, in this big bucket full of brand new vintage toys that were wrapped unopened with all their tags. And I placed a bid. Won the bid for $30, and I got, you know, 30 brand new toys for $30. And yeah, happy I got these. I have a couple of them already, but you know, you can never have too much Barney. And I was also able to pick up this Barney's Great Adventure tape, and this is actually a screener, production screener. So these would have been sent to retailers around the country, and you know, it has a different back on it. It says screener on the actual tape itself. So these are pretty rare, and I'm happy I found it for about $10. Now, I also found a lot of stuff at thrift shops this month. I don't usually find a lot of Barney stuff at thrift shops, but I guess I got lucky this month. So these are, here's a Barney memory game I found at Goodwill. I got this Barney Bongos, which needs to be repaired and restored a little bit. I also got these 3 Barney board books. So now, my niece came over a couple weeks ago, and she brought me this Barney phone that she found at a thrift store, and she's like 3 years old. And I thought it was really funny that a 3-year-old is giving their 26-year-old uncle Barney toys. So I was happy to get this. And my older brother, he found this online and picked it up for me. It's a Christmas Barney cake topper in its package still. So a couple more items that I got this month was this Day at the Park with Barney clock that was given out at the grand opening of the attraction. So this is pretty unique and fairly rare. And I also got this really interesting Barney's Great Adventure post-it holder. It was picked up at a antique mall down in Dallas area. I'm assuming it was probably used in the Lyric Studio's office, just because its proximity of where it was found. But I've never seen one of these, and that is pretty interesting. So, you know, you put Post-its in here, and you know, you just pull them out as you need it. So, great memento. And lastly, you know, one of my good friends in the Barney community, his name is Nick. He went ahead and sent me one of his, you know, original Barney shirts from 1991, and I thought it was so nice of him. It's, you know, some really good condition, so I'm happy to have this in my collection as well. Thank you all for tuning in today to this episode of Live from Barney's Couch. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you go ahead and leave me a like. If you want to stay up to date on my future content and history topics, you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate that. If you have questions or comments for me about future Barney topics that you'd like me to talk about, you can go ahead and leave those in the comment section below. If you'd like to follow me on social media, I'm on Facebook at the Barney History Fans Facebook group. I'm also on Instagram at Barney_builder. Thank you all for tuning in today, and we will talk to you next time live from Barney's Couch.